favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And it is Judd's Hockey Show on a Thursday night following a 4-1 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins for the Minnesota Wild. Judd and AJ Fredrickson with you. He is producing and co-hosting. And, boy, a lot to get to here, Age. First of all, this performance to me coming out in the first period, not acceptable at all. It was a Pittsburgh team that was desperate. You knew they were going to be desperate, and yet you didn't match their intensity. But before we even get to that, let's talk about the injury situation. Because as I've told Declan before, just when you're concerned about where is Gustav Nyquist going to play? Where is he going to play? There's no room for him. It's time of year where guys get hurt. And 2 injuries suffered tonight. Both players did not return. Oscar Sundqvist was cross-checked by Chris Letang. He did not come back. That is concerning. The other one is extremely concerning, and that is Joel Eriksson taking a slap shot, killing a penalty off what looked like the left boot area of his skate. He got up. He could barely get up. He couldn't function after that. The Penguins scored immediately. He went to the bench, went to the locker room, and did not come back. And despite the attempts of Bally Sports North to sugarcoat it as, hey, there's depth here, let's just call a spade a spade. Let's cut through the crap. AJ, if Eriksson is hurt, I don't know how you replace him. If Sundqvist is hurt, you can put Nyquist in. That sort of makes sense. Not ideal, but you can do it. If Eriksson is hurt, he is one of your, he's your best defensive center. Goudreau's probably second. But he's so pivotal. He does so many things so well. I think a lot of them we don't appreciate, but that's neither here nor there. He does them. If Eriksson is out for any amount of time, and my fear is he broke his foot, because that shot was like a guy like that gets up. But that doesn't mean a lot. Despite what they tried to paint on television tonight, that one really, really concerns me. And again, I don't exactly know where does the help come from? That's a center. You don't have centers just unless you're going to go get Marco Rossi from Iowa, and he's going to play well. And that's a lot to ask. It's too much to ask, probably. I don't know how you replace that guy.
Yeah. My notes here. I like
what you're doing. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you very much. I have Sundqvist hurt equals bad. Right below that, I have Jeek hurt equals very bad in all caps.
Yes.
Yeah, you put it pretty well. There's some guys on lineups, especially in the Wild's lineup, where it's like they get hurt, they're going to miss some time. You're like, it does stink, and it does. It's a knock to the team, but there's guys that can step up, probably fill in the gaps. Because some of the it's a Venn diagram of skill set among some of these guys who can play these different roles, and so it's just a matter of tinkering. Joel Eriksson is a guy who has a Venn diagram of his own, just because he is able to contribute offensively. He can move the puck well and hop up in the play. He does so much on the backside of things, getting back on the penalty kill where he got hurt. He's out there for a reason, because he's a sound defensive player. He's a guy that I think we talk about Brodin getting overlooked in the Norris. I think Eriksson gets overlooked, maybe not to the same extent, but at times for the Selke, just because of how good of a two-way player he is. So when you do have Joel Eriksson get out of this lineup, and I am waiting with bated breath to see just what exactly it is. Because if it's a stinger and maybe it's just he's got to stay off for a couple days, we have a little swelling, I can live with that. But if it's a broken foot, which I would imagine is probably worst case scenario, I don't know what you do. You don't have a guy that can really step in and take that workload and really. You're already a team that's so low on center,
right?
Like talent at the center position,
exactly.
And now the one guy that you have, who I would say is a legitimate center in every team in the NHL. You just can't lose him. So I don't know how they're going to adapt and overcome here. It's I'm fingers crossed that it's going to be the better news than the worse.
Yeah, I'm with you completely. If it's, best case it's a bruise, but that shot was right on the boot. We've seen that before. It's usually not good. It usually keeps you out for a while. So Yeah, I just don't know. There's not, again, there's so Goudreau bumps up and blah blah blah, but that still is not an answer to a guy who is as important. And to your point, guys like Brodin and Eriksson Ek, you don't appreciate them until they're not playing. Because you don't really think about what they do. Like they're not they don't make sexy plays. They don't make plays where you're like, oh, and in fact we could say, well, Ek hadn't been scoring a lot lately, but the key with a guy like that is it doesn't matter. Like it's nice if he does score, but they just bring so much. Let's get to the game though. Okay. Yeah. Second period was better. Third period, Pittsburgh pulled the same stunt that the Wild pulled against Colorado last week. They actually won that game, but then pulled on Monday against the Golden Knights. This prevent defense crap, which I absolutely can't stand. But let's talk about the first period because this disturbs me. Okay, you're fighting for the Central Division title, which by the way is important. Like if you can win the Central Division, you want to. It's not like a luxury. You'd prefer to pull away and get that first place. Sets up a matchup against probably Seattle. That's more favorable one. Again, as we've talked about before, Dallas doesn't scare me, but if you can win the division, you want to. In the first period, I felt like the Wild came out. Pittsburgh was desperate. And you know what? In their predicament, trying to get a wild card spot, they have to be. But I felt like the Wild was just very relaxed to allow Pittsburgh to play their game. And I'm not sure about you, but that really disturbs me. I mean, we are 4 or 5 games, 4 now away from the playoffs. Like that intensity has to be matched. This is not layback time. This is not luxury time. This is a time where I want to see you because you're not a good enough team to like just coast in. It's one thing if you're Boston and you've been beating the pants off opponents and you're resting guys, but the Wild's not doing that, or they certainly were not. I was really disturbed with that first period tonight because I don't think there's an excuse for it. I just don't.
Yeah, I think you're being very generous to say that they came out to play in the first period. I didn't see the Minnesota Wild hockey team until midway through the second. It was a really pathetic performance in the first period. I think it was the 17th shot on goal of the period was where the Penguins finally found the back of the net. 17 shots, and that's with like time still to go in the period. What is happening? I can maybe excuse a period like that back in, early December, early January. You're going to have those times. You can't have that within like a week, 2 weeks of the playoffs happening. You have to be firing on all cylinders, whether or not you have guys missing, whether or not you're dealing with injuries, whether or not you're missing your superstar. You have to at least show that you're like playing with a certain intensity. And that just wasn't there tonight. I can live with if the Penguins channel, what they have been for the past decade, and they want to come out and play like a superstar team, and Chris Letang is all of a sudden 25 years old, and we have Sid the kid instead of Sid the adult and all that stuff. But the Wild, they looked like it was a Sunday afternoon, and they were out in a hammock in the backyard, and it was a nice 75-degree day, and they're like, yeah, I'll get another iced tea here in a little bit, and then we're going to grill out later, blah, blah, blah. There's no urgency. There was no attention to detail. It was sloppy. It was slow. It was lazy. When there were turnovers, it was just kind of like, we'll get it on the next rush up the ice. Not a big deal. Let's mosey on back to the defensive zone. And look at that. Another shot. Great save, Marc-Andre. Thank you for having us back here. No, I was sick to my stomach after the first 20 minutes, Judd. It was, from what we've seen this team show at times against some of the better teams in the conference here the past couple of weeks, the Penguins are a team that they're fighting for their playoff lives. They want to get the most out of this core group of guys that they can while they still have them. They want a playoff spot.
Yeah.
They're not going to roll over and lie down. You have to go out there and bring a certain level of intensity. And there was none. It was zero. They were a wet paper towel tonight in the first period.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, again, that's a game where they have to come out and play hard, and they did not. And it was incredibly disappointing. Jackson says, relax, Judd. Let's see the energy that they have on Saturday. Why should we relax? This is how you lose first round playoff series, by having this mentality. I'm so sick of this. Okay. You know what? They should come out on Saturday like they should have come out tonight. Tonight was a playoff style game against an Eastern Conference team. Pittsburgh's desperate. You should be desperate to win the division. And like, don't say, well, you might get guys hurt, because they got 2 guys hurt regardless. So like, there is no reason, Jackson. There is no reason for these teams not to be coming out and playing, and at least, if nothing else, matching Pittsburgh's effort, matching Pittsburgh, what they are doing. And AJ's right. I mean, the shots on goal in the first period were ridiculous. And here's my other problem. That's Marc-Andre Fleury going back into Pittsburgh to play, and that's how you play in front of him? That's an embarrassment. You're embarrassing your team. Get your act together. I mean, look, if we all expect this team to go out in the first round, then somebody tell me and I'll back off, because then I just don't care anymore. But we should be sick of that by now. And this team has shown, much like the Wolves have, now the Wolves are the extreme of this, but this team has shown that when it's playing well, it can play really well. And that first period was effort. That first period was intensity. It had zero to do with skill. The amazing thing is, you lost a game 4-1 to the Penguins tonight, in which, I'm not sure about you, I barely thought about Crosby or Malkin. Letang was great. That first goal is fantastic. But I mean, so we're talking the star power of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I didn't really think about them much. But I'm so tired of, well, just relax, it'll be fine. How many times have we said that? And how many times has this team gone out in the first round? If I'm not mistaken, this team hasn't got past the first round since 2015, okay? Mm-hmm. So, and now Jackson says Score North is too sensitive.
I'm an emotional guy, so I.
Well, but the thing is, okay, I am sensitive, but here's why. I pay a lot for cable. I pay a lot for Bally's, and I got more smoke blown up my behind every night than I can shake a stick at, aside from the Timberwolves. Okay, so no, I'm not going to back off. I'm not going to be, well, that they might have tried hard. Third period they tried hard. First of all, Pittsburgh in the third period goes to that prevent BS. I can't stand that. But you're right, AJ. That first period, inexcusable, and you need to get your act together. And as far as I'm concerned, this was a game that was extremely important. Dallas is playing Philadelphia tonight. They already lead, I believe, 3-0. The Colorado Avalanche are playing the San Jose Sharks tonight. They lead 10-0, and the game hasn't even started yet. So, no, I'm not going to back off. I'm going to hold this team to a standard that they play far superior to what we saw. And if they don't, we are looking at a repeat of every other year. And there is no reason, last thing before I throw it back to you, there is no reason why this team can't win the Central Division other than what they are doing to themselves. And tonight is, to me, a huge demerit to this team.
The reason personally why you kind of touched on it there too. The reason why I'm so, and I will say offended by the effort in the first period, and why I'm so up in arms about it, is because it's as a fan, and that's ultimately what I am at the end of the day. I invest, and I'm sure there's people in the chat, and there's people who are going to listen to this show that follow Score North as well, that we invest so much of our time, our free time, outside of everything else in our lives, to these Minnesota sports teams. And we wait with bated breath, and we give them our attention, and we give them our money to just watch them. And we set aside this time. All I want is I want to see that they care and that they're trying. And that's just not what I saw in the first period. It's different than if, I, like back when I worked in retail about a year ago, if I go in for a shift and, I put about 50% in, I'm folding t-shirts and it's over there on aisle 3, whatever. And then I try for the final couple hours, cause I'm like, okay, I probably should. It's different than that, because I have maybe 3 people that really outweigh my expectations there and are depending on me. This is an entire state. It's an entire community that people's emotions like rise and fall with every second in these games. I just want you to go out there and you're spending an hour of your day playing a game. I just want to see that you're trying. And I just didn't see that in the first period. So that's why I personally feel, like I said, I'm a little offended about it. That being said, they did rise to that level of occasion midway through the second, and they started to in the third, but at that point, it's just too late.
It's too late, right? Don't do that. Yeah, and that drives me crazy. That drives me. We're gonna come back now and show you. Come out with that. Like there's nothing, that first period was nothing but effort. That's my problem. If the Pittsburgh Penguins come out and they kick your ass, let's just say they're better, okay?
Mhm.
Let's say they are just superior, and Crosby comes out and Malkin comes out and they skate circles around you because you ain't that good. Okay, that's frustrating to watch, but I get it. But that's not what that was. And what drives me absolutely crazy about the second period and then the third especially is it's this, no, we're going to try again. And you got exactly what you deserved, which is you pressured, and the Penguins came down and Jeff Carter scored that backhanded goal. You deserve that. That's exactly what you deserved, and you got it. This team, look, this is a team that if they, and we've talked about this, if they don't work their butts off every single night, like they should never come out. And this has been my point all year long. And just to be very clear, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think what they did at the deadline, what Bill Guerin did at the trade deadline was absolutely great. Okay. I think they improved themselves. They got tougher. They are a physical team. They can dictate play when they want, not necessarily from a skating standpoint, but from a physical standpoint for sure. But when this team comes out, and if they ever try to get by on talent, they're going to lose every single time. That's been my point all year long. You need to know that you are not that talented. You got to work your ass off. I'll give you an example of a guy I saw getting crap tonight who I think actually played pretty hard, and he didn't have a great game. But and we probably haven't seen this enough. Marcus Foligno, I thought, played a pretty hard game. Like he was going to the net. He was trying. That's what you got to do. You got to do that every single time. And when guys get caught up in trying to be talented, this team's absolutely done then because they're not talented enough. They don't have enough talent to get by. And that's what I saw far too much tonight. And again, it's a cautionary tale. Saturday against Vegas bothered me because I felt that they tried to over talent the Golden Knights. Monday didn't, because I felt that they actually dictated play quite a bit. They lost in a shootout. It was disturbing how they played, I thought, in the third period because they sort of went to the prevent again. But I actually thought, AJ, that Monday was a pretty good performance. Like I think they did a lot of things well.
Yeah.
And tonight, I felt that they went back to trying to get by on talent. And Pittsburgh was the desperate team. And the Wild had no interest in matching that desperation when they had to, which was from the moment the puck dropped. That's playoff hockey. And I got news for you guys. We're there. And gals, we're there. It's playoff hockey time.
Yeah. And, when looking back, I guess, at the game a little more in depth here, I noticed that middle of the second period when they started really to, like I said, try and show that, like, okay, we actually need these points here. Let's actually try to put the puck in the net. The fourth line was the one I felt personally driving a lot of that momentum.
Yep.
Reeves, Dewar, Duhaime. Those three names were out there on the ice. And to your point, Foligno, who I saw kind of 50-50 on the good old Minnesota Wild hockey Twitter tonight of he's, you got to sit him or, wow, I love the effort. Those four guys for me were really leading the charge, getting the momentum. I don't expect them to go out there and score every shift or have an offensive scoring chance every shift, but that they did their role, and it sucks to have interference penalty after interference penalty. I do want to hear your thoughts too on the Dumba hit on that interference call too, because I saw two different angles and it was, I'm still a little torn, but it's just so frustrating. The fourth line is not the team, or is not the group of guys that I want to have to like lean on and expect to show up and be the guys that show up and really kickstart this team. It should be Matthew Boldy. It should be Matt Zuccarello. It should be Marcus Johansson at this point, given what we've seen from him. And granted, Marcus Johansson, I think, looked good tonight, especially with his power play goal. He was one of the few forwards, I think, that was like charging full steam into the offensive zone every time they rushed up the ice. But yeah, no, fourth line, I think they, for this loss, at least get a pass in my book.
Oh yeah. I thought the fourth line worked their butts off. I don't think I talked to you about this the last time that we did a show together. I talked to Declan about this, and I talked to Declan and Jesse Pierce on the show Wednesday about this, but I'll run this by you.
Okay.
Could you do me a favor and call your local police precinct and put out an APB for number 36? Because Matt Zuccarello has disappeared.
Yeah.
You're not going to win a playoff series this way. And maybe when Kaprizov comes back, it's fine. But here's my thing. And, make no mistake, until tonight, without Kaprizov, Boldy's been fantastic. Okay. So I'm not even going to go there with him because he's been so good. 13 goals in 12 games going into tonight. Off night tonight, I can accept an off night. But when Kaprizov got hurt, I said Zuccarello's got to start shooting and he's got to contribute. He's got to start scoring. He scored goals in the first 2 games without Kaprizov. I think we're 11 games into Kaprizov's absence now. I don't know when he's going to come back. It sounds like he's skating again, so he might come back before the regular season ends, which I think is 4 games left. But I said Zuccarello has to shoot. He has to contribute. He has to score goals. He had 2 goals in the first 2 games. He hasn't scored since. He's just disappeared. Mm-hmm. And I will say this, and this is independent of tonight. I don't think you can win a playoff series with Zuccarello doing as little as he's doing. And if he gets an assist here and there on a Kaprizov goal, I still don't think that's enough. His disappearance has been a massive, as what AFCYUNG says there. It's been a massive disappointment. And that note is right on the screen on YouTube. He is MIA right now.
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope that as soon as you bring 97 back into this lineup, it's back to, sunshines and rainbows for that top line, because I think it's just so dependent, but it is insanely frustrating during this absence that he's almost non-existent. He's not a winger that you can rely on to generate offense on his own. It's eye-opening, and it's great that when they do have the chemistry and they're both healthy and in the lineup, it's super fun to watch. But if one of those guys needs to take some time off, they should. Half of that pairing is going to be able to do that. The other half, we've seen here, evidently cannot hold up their end of the bargain. So it's very frustrating. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just holding out hope that when it does come back, we go back to the way that it is. But if he keeps playing like this you might as well shuffle things around in some way, shape, or form, because you cannot keep getting him out there for what's he like 15 minutes a game. I don't think he deserves that. He's not playing like a guy who deserves that amount of ice time. And I do believe his skill set is there, and I do believe that he still can be a good hockey player. It's just he looks so lost right now. I don't know what it is. Maybe we need to hook him up with Aaron Rodgers and go sit in the dark for 4 days, and then maybe he'll come out and he'll be able to find a goal or two. So I'm not sure.
I think the intriguing thing here is to go from what was pretty much a downer of a night. I think the intriguing thing here is what Nyquist can potentially contribute. So he's going to be back. I think it sounds like he actually might play on Saturday against the Blues. I think Kaprizov and Nyquist both traveled. They made it very clear that Kaprizov was not going to play tonight. I'm guessing Kaprizov does not play Saturday night at the X against the Blues. I think Nyquist might. That's going to be an intriguing one because he's missed a ton of time. That's going to be a big, he's not going to I don't think he's going to step in and pick up, and start scoring goals. But he is definitely an interesting addition, and I'm sure Zuccarello is going to get every chance to reunite with Kaprizov and play with him on a line with Hartman. That being said, Nyquist potentially brings something that certainly a guy like Sundqvist couldn't, and that is goal scoring ability. Again, if X out, I just don't know how it works because you can't replace him. But the Nyquist potential return does intrigue me, and I think could lead to at least having another guy who teams have to focus on as a potential goal scorer. And right now, there's not, Kaprizov potentially coming back for sure, right? Boldy for sure. But there's not a lot of guys in the lineup right now that scare you as far as goal scoring potential. At least Nyquist would have the ability, if he can pick up at a decent place, to bring that.
Yeah, I'm seeing reports that per Michael Russo of The athletic. And it's not just Caleb Smith. Thank you to him for tipping me off to this before looking elsewhere, but player only meeting possibly going on after the game tonight. What are I want to hear your thoughts on that, because the last time, and this was covered extensively through multiple outlets, that there a player only meeting kind of revamped and kickstarted this team. And you can talk about this is with hindsight of, they went on this 14 game point streak and is the longest in franchise history and all that stuff. I mean, how many of these do you have, these magical heart to heart experiences a season that can really get things turned around, Judd?
Do you want Sports Dad's thoughts on this?
Yes, I would love it.
Okay, here's what Sports Dad is going to tell you, my young AJ, and all of you young viewers out there and listeners. You can only go to that well X amount of times, and I don't know right before the playoffs is an ideal time. I don't even know that this was necessary. Like the Golden Knights losses, the loss on Saturday I wasn't high on, but I wasn't disgusted by it. The loss on Monday, I thought they actually played pretty well. Now, was this done because Eck is hurt to a point where it is bad and they have to like sort of calm themselves down? Like, I would like to know why. This certainly didn't. Look, tonight wasn't pretty and it was disturbing how they played. I don't think tonight's loss though should have triggered that, right? And like the loss to the Golden Knights, in which picked up 1 point of a possible 4 in 2 games, I didn't think was especially disturbing. So I'm curious exactly what they were talking about. But that being said, I don't think you can go to this well an endless amount of times. Every time something goes wrong, let's shut the locker room door and tell Dean to leave. The other thing that bothers me about this to a certain point too, and we saw this last year and it backfired completely, and this is where I become very concerned about Dean. Don't know how I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this. Do you remember how Dean was basically like last year at this time? The locker room polices itself. Like sometimes we don't even go in there. Coaches don't go in. And I'm like, dude, you need to go in there sometimes. Like you are the coach of this team. The policing thing is great, but last time I checked, Mark Messier and Ray Bork didn't play for your team. And those are the type of guys who could, basically say, get out. So I get a little bit concerned about how Dean tries to go hands off. Veterans, it's great. Look, they've got some good guys now. I like the locker room. I used to hate it. You know that. I despised the group when it was Parisi and Zucker and Suter, blah, blah, blah. But I think the head coach needs to sometimes go in, close the door himself and say, here's what you didn't do well and you're going to improve, without saying, I'm going to leave it to Jared Spurgeon. The whole thing of Spurgeon's always calm. Sometimes I don't want calm. Sometimes I want a coach to throw some things around or to at least sternly lecture his team. So I'm a little bit disturbed by this. Players only. They're going to do it again. Yeah, don't count on that.
Yeah, before I do answer kind of your question about it, it looks like the latest message this evening was stop being complacent. You can't just flip the switch once you get to the playoffs. I don't know what else the conversation.
Why are we talking about that now, though? Like, I know that.
Yeah,
I could have flown. I could have flown to Pittsburgh, taken the ice, not been good, but known that I was going to slash 8 or 9 guys because you can't be complacent. See, this is what bothers me. This is today's sports that really drives me crazy. Why are we there's 4 games left? Complacency? Are you serious? Are you going to be you have concerns about complacency with 4 games left? You're fighting for the Central Division title? Like, what's the complacency? Well, geez, I was going to go home and get some ice cream. We got a game against Pittsburgh. I mean, honest to God, what the hell is going on here? How does this happen? How are you going to no, but I mean, November, let's talk about, okay, we got complacent. Okay, that's a problem. But we're 4 games from the playoffs. I mean, Bill Guerin should go down there. If I was Bill Guerin, I'd say you're all driving home. I'm going to rent you all cars. You're all going to drive home. No one's going to fly home. You sure as hell aren't flying first class in a chartered jet. I can't do this. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Get them on Delta on the fly home. There's no reason that they
put them in coach. Put them in coach tomorrow morning. I'd have them stay in Pittsburgh. I'd put them in coach, and then I beg skate their asses once they get back. See, this drives me crazy.
Put some of those guys between two people that look like me and see how comfy that flight is. Like make them really think about it. Yes, Matthew White, get him on the Greyhound bus. I like it.
Greyhound baby.
But yeah, no, going way back, and it seems like pretty far back to your point now. Dean, get in the room. You can't. This is not a Disney movie. You can't rely on it. I know these are grown adults, and I understand there's a lot of veteran presence in that room. I'm going to let them sort it out themselves X amount of times throughout the season. At a certain point, you are the coach. You need to say, all right, I have to steer the ship here. You need to get in there and say whatever it is you do and get the guys going. Be the coach. Like, do you think Rod Brindamore is just letting the guys patrol the room? And you think they're letting Svechnikov and Martinuk, you really get in each other's face? No. He's in there. Rod the Bot is in there getting in guys' faces, telling them what they need to do and the attitude they need to have. Dean, take control. Grab the horse by the reins and buckle up. Let's tell people what exactly you want instead of, well, let's kick the rock around and maybe they'll find it out themselves. These are a great group of guys, Judd. Just great energy in the room. And let me tell you, they have a lot of heart and a lot of determination. And I think they're going to find their own voice. Get in there and make them find their voice. Give them their voice. There's no reason to be letting the room police itself right now.
Well, and hopefully this will work. Hopefully they'll come out more intense, but it's very disturbing to me and disappointing that they have to have this type of conversation now. It's just like, this should not have been an issue going into tonight's game. And it was, and I'm not quite sure why, but yes, it disturbs me. All right, Age, I'm fresh out of thoughts. You?
Really quick. I brought it up earlier. Matt Dumba, he's been okay so far. I think over the past couple of weeks. Today was not a good night for him in the slightest. He had that bad hit. The interference call, I forget on who the hit was. Later in the game on the Jeff Carter goal, it was a crossing of wires where he essentially set a nice screen on Jonas Brodin. I thought I took my glasses off. I had to clean them before watching the replay because that was laugh out loud funny. That was America's Funniest Videos, like a submission. That was how good it was. What did you think of his hit on that interference call? Because I saw a couple writers from around the league saying that the player safety department might have a look into it because there was possibly some shoulder to head contact.
I thought it was absolutely fine. I thought it was a borderline penalty at best.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the guy put his head down. Like, you can't put your head down. This is a sport in which you can't put your head down. If I'm Dumba and I jump up and the guy's looking at me and I chicken wing him in the head, that's a penalty and probably a suspension. I thought that guy put his head down and he came across the blue line, and I thought and he got rid of the puck at the last second. I thought it was borderline. And I mean, I am the last guy to be a wild apologist. I'm not sure about you, but I thought that was very close to not even being a penalty. So I do not think there's any way. I mean, that's not a suspension. It shouldn't be a fine.
No. My initial reaction to it was, if that's a interference call, every time somebody rings the puck around after like a dump in is also a penalty. And then the slow-mo doesn't help because it's just such a elongated like pause. But it's
did he jump though? He didn't really jump, right?
I guess like maybe I didn't look at it too close.
The issue is if you go up and go like that.
Yeah, it looked like it was more just he tried to elevate his shoulder to like meet the guy, but I'm not exactly sure. That's essentially all I have though for thoughts and whatnot. Marcus Johansson continues to step up. Voldy gets his 100th point, fastest ever Wild player to get to 100 career points behind Kirill Kaprizov. So,
and he's been great. So I mean, we've talked enough about him. So yeah, and he's played. I mean, I didn't think that he had a great game tonight, but my God, I think he has 13 goals in 13 games now. Before we go, I do want to tell you all about my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers, who helped me drop around 40 pounds and can help you lose weight as well. If you are looking for spring and summer to get into shape, to look great, it is Livia Weight Control Centers. It's not a diet. It's not a fad. It is a lifestyle change that's going to help you drop weight. And most importantly, their dietitians are going to help you keep it off. 855-GO-LIVIA, livia.com, LIVEA.com. Oh, and I buried the lead. The first 8 weeks are free. So you're going to get your first 8 weeks for free. You're going to lose a lot of weight. You're going to feel great. And 8 weeks, think about that. In 8 weeks, you can be looking good and feeling great. Livia, LIVEA.com. AJ, thank you very much. Judd's Hockey Show will return soon. I wish that this was a happier edition, but at least we have the Gophers going to the national championship game, beating Boston University 6-2. Congratulations to Bob Motzko and crew. We will talk to you all soon.
There's no room for petty bull.